Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, AMI hosted a fellowship program for students interested in studying journalism, communications, and media studies. As a part of this program, students visited and met with individuals from the New York Times, McKinsey, and Netflix, amongst many other places. As part of the program, they had the opportunity to visit the Patriot Act studio and to meet with Hasan Minhaj. He was a gracious host and answered so many questions despite a long day of shooting. He has been a consistent supporter of AMI's, regularly speaking at our programs, discussing representation and his journey towards success. Some of his posts have gone viral, including his commentary on the South Asian community and Black Lives Matter. And also some of his comedy has gone viral, including those related to South Asian fathers, which is quite relatable, and unfortunately at the expense of his dad, Najmi Minhaj. Hasan is best known for his Netflix show, The Patriot Act with Hasan Minhaj. He has won 2 Peabody Awards and 2 Webby Awards. He came to prominence on The Daily Show as a senior correspondent. In 2017, he was featured in the White House Correspondent Dinner as the featured speaker. His first stand-up comedy special, Homecoming King, debuted in Netflix in 2017. In 2019, he was listed amongst Time's 100 most influential people in the world. He has recently joined The Morning Show on Apple TV alongside Steve Carell. Hasan, we are so happy to have you again.
An inspiring evening where so many amazing speakers and members of Congress have spoken to you all. I'd like to take this opportunity, even though we can't be in person, to share a little bit of my story. Liki and Shahid, Rahman, who have been so instrumental not only in AMI, but working with me and being a part of your guys' programming. So big shout outs to you guys. I wish we were all there in person. Generally, every year we do this, it's a lot of fun. But I was thinking about what to talk about tonight. And obviously you have so many illustrious members of Congress and people involved in government. And now you got the comedian guy who's supposed to talk to you guys virtually from my basement. So I wanted to touch on 3 major themes that have kind of impacted and shaped my life and things that I've been thinking about in 2020 going into 2021. Obviously, this has been such a weird year for all of us. And this is a very strange opportunity for me. This is the first time I've actually worn a suit. So thank you guys for getting me out of my sweatpants. But the 3 themes I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight are, number 1, the power of mentors. Number 2, finding your gift. And number 3, what I think will be a new chapter for America, and specifically for the Muslim American community. So for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Hasan Minhaj, and a little bit about my background. I grew up in Davis, California, which is the northern part of California. It's kind of the forgotten part of California. Everybody thinks California stops at the Bay Area, but I grew up in Davis. I'm a child, like a lot of you in the Muslim community, I'm a child of immigrants. My dad immigrated in 1982. We settled down in Davis, and I grew up there. And like most Stacey kids, I was really into hip hop and basketball. I wasn't good at either. And the rules for me growing up were the same rules that you guys probably grew up with. No fun, no friends, no girlfriends. You can go to med school or be a lawyer. And growing up, I really didn't know what my specific skill set or talent was. I think I was relatively smart, but I wasn't super smart by our community standards. But when I was in high school, I had a really, really important counselor and teacher named Miss Takeuchi, who had a profound impact on my life. I was involved in speech and debate. I was a speech and debate kid. So if anybody here is watching and was involved in forensics, in high school. I was a forensics kid. One of the things that I was really passionate about was impromptu public speaking. And in impromptu speaking, you are given a topic to debate against somebody else. And so we would go to these speech and debate tournaments, and you'd go to an empty high school gymnasium and just argue with another kid. You'd be given the topic in advance. And so you'd have to argue these very inane topics like municipal spending in a certain city, and you'd have to debate. Somebody would have to debate for spending or less spending. And then whenever I would get up on stage to debate another kid, I would just start making fun of their arguments. I would poke fun at the fact that we're having this very heated debate about municipality spending, even though we're 15 years old and we're in a gymnasium where the roof is leaking, and we're having this very heated debate in front of someone's parents. Isn't that a conflict of interest? And people would just start laughing. And sometimes the judges that were parents would give me 10 to 15 points higher. And I would ask them, why did you give me more points? And they said, because you were breaking the fourth wall and you were just having fun up there. And that was really authentic and funny. And I didn't know that that was a special skill set that would be used in comedy, and specifically my comedy career years later. And Miss Takeuchi was the one who said, hey, this is a really special gift that you have. And I told her, I was like, I'm not really trying at it. I just like doing it. And I think if there's a lot of young people watching, that's the first kind of major lesson or thing that I would like for all of us to consider. A lot of times people talk about finding your passion. There's a lot of things in life that I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about basketball. But if you've seen me ever play basketball, or if you saw the Celebrity All-Star Game on TV, I'm not very good. So even though I'm passionate about basketball, that's great. It's not my gift. Your gift is something that I learned. It is something that you're naturally good at, that you don't really have to try hard at, but you have an alacrity for, that you pick up quickly, and you're naturally ahead of the competition at when you don't even try. And I didn't realize that public speaking was that for me. And if I had applied a little bit of more work to it, I could get even better. And Miss Takeuchi, who I'm still trying to find online, if anyone knows Jan Takeuchi, who taught at Davis High School for 20 years, she had a huge impact on my life and helped me find my gift. As soon as I graduated high school, I went to college. And if anyone here who's attending the program is going to college and is struggling to figure out what your major is, I had the same sort of story. I started off, like a lot of you, in pre-med. I took Chem 101, and I took it my first 2 years of college, and I did not do particularly well. And then I thought I would pivot and go into pre-law. But while I was in college gave me this incredible opportunity to try other things and other art forms. And so I went to, when I was in college, a buddy of mine, I know I shouldn't be saying this live, but in college, a lot of us illegally downloaded movies and TV shows. And so one of the things that one of my roommates, Imran J. Khan, who I'm still friends with to this day, he had downloaded a Chris Rock special called Never Scared. And when I watched the special, I was like, what are you watching? And he was like, oh, this is stand-up comedy. I had no idea what stand-up was because my parents didn't let us have cable in the house. And I was like, oh, this is funny speech and debate. Chris Rock is just making an argument funny. Like, he's talking about the war in Iraq, but he's just being funny. Or he's talking about George W. Bush, but he's just making an argument funny. I did this in gymnasiums. Ms. Takeuchi was right. So I didn't know that what Mrs. T was telling me was, oh, this gift that you have actually is a skill set. And when I watched it on that laptop in that dorm room, when they cut to the reverse shot in the auditorium, and I saw that all of Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. was clapping and cheering on this guy, I was like, wow, this guy has a skill set that is celebrated by people. Maybe this could be something that I could do. And so I went to Google and I Googled how to be a comedian. And the first thing it said was, call your local stand-up comedy club and ask them if you can open up for the comedian that is headlining that weekend. So I Googled the local comedy club. It's the Sacramento Punchline, which is next to the Art and Fair Mall in Sacramento. And I called the comedy club and I looked up who was headlining that weekend. And I said, hi, my name's Hasan Minhaj. I'm a stand-up comedian. I was wondering if I could open for Dave Chappelle. I noticed on the website Dave Chappelle is headlining the comedy club, and can I open? And they thought I was pulling a fast one. They're like, his name's Dave Chappelle. Are you sure? I mean, and I was like, yeah, I saw it on the website, Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's performing at the Sacramento Punchline, and I would like to. So they thought I was messing with him. And so they immediately hung up. I kept calling, and they kept getting annoyed by the Dave Chappelle kid. And eventually the manager called me back and was like, hey, if you're trying to prank call us, you need to cut it out, whoever this person is. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I'm in college. I'd like to perform. And he said, okay, come on down. There's an open mic on Tuesdays. And that was the beginning of my journey. It was in September of 2004. That was about 16 years ago. And I just started showing up every week. And I went from performing at the open mics there to then starting a comedy club at UC Davis. We would perform in the coffee shop, in the coffee house. So if anyone here is attending and went to UC Davis with me, you probably saw me. I was standing on stage in the coffee house in the MU, just performing during random open mics, doing poetry nights. I got up on stage as much as I could. And like most kids with a dream, I hid it from my parents for a very long time. And I let the venom of disappointment just kind of slowly seep in over the course of a decade. And once I graduated, my parents made me take the LSAT, and they kind of gave me a 5-year window to see if I would quote unquote make it. So from 2008 to 2013, I basically just let the shot clock expire on my LSAT score. I moved to San Francisco and then Los Angeles, trying to make it in show business. And I hit a bunch of walls. It was really, really difficult for me to kind of break in. And one of the big lessons that I learned was, specifically for folks like us, people from our community, people from our background, Hollywood wasn't looking for quote unquote our type. And I had to be industrious and try to figure out another way in. I couldn't get in through the front door. So I had to figure out, how do I get in through the back door? How do I get in through the window? I had to use that same sort of immigrant hustle that our parents, that our uncles, that our aunts used when they came to this country to innovate, have that entrepreneurial spirit, and create a new wave for myself. So one of the things that I quickly embraced was YouTube. YouTube was a very popular platform for young comedians. And I'm producing sketches with a group of friends of mine. We were all kind of rejects from the audition room, and we had a group called Goatface. Some of you guys may have been familiar with some of our sketches. They went kind of viral at the time online. They would get a couple 100,000 views, sometimes 500,000 views, sometimes 1 million views. But I had this series called The Truth with Hasan Minhaj, where I'd basically just look to the camera and do these mini monologues for 5 minutes about something that was happening in the culture. And coincidentally enough, they kind of made their rounds in terms of, they hit the desks of important people that matter in show business. And in 2014, someone at The Daily Show had seen some of my work. And I was lucky enough where Michael Che, who's now the host of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, he was leaving The Daily Show to go to SNL, and there was an opening at The Daily Show, and I had an opportunity to audition on The Daily Show. And this was just yet another example of where timing and luck also met preparation. I had this body of work that I had already curated over the past 4 or 5 years, where I knew how to write and produce my own material. I knew how to shoot my own field pieces. And so for my audition, I just submitted my own field piece that I shot myself. And I had also kind of pre-written a little monologue based on this viral moment that had happened online. I don't know if you guys remember when Ben Affleck was on Real Time with Bill Maher. He kind of got into it with Bill Maher, and he ended up defending Muslims. And I had this aha moment. I was like, oh my God, this is a seminal moment for the Muslim community. Batman has stood up for Muslims. So I wrote this monologue called Batman versus Bill Maher. He may not be the hero we want, but he is the hero that we need. And so I ended up doing that monologue during my screen test with John, and he hired me that day. And I had been doing stand-up comedy at that point for 10 years, 1 month, and 9 days. I still remember it. It was October 9th, 2014, but that moment kind of changed my life. And I think about what led to that moment. And I think everything from that point, you know, as Shahid has described, A lot of people are now familiar with some of that work, whether it was The Daily Show or Patriot Act. But for me, I think the big lesson that I learned there was, what were the things that put me in that position to shine? And I think it really was that entrepreneurial spirit. And when I think back to the generation that came before us, our parents, they had that same sort of moxie and drive and hustle to come from other parts of the world to establish themselves here in an industry where they were a minority. I used that same hustle in Hollywood. And so financing my own audition tape to really, blow Jon Stewart's socks off, that was something that I did once again, even when it was time for me to leave The Daily Show 4 years later. I put together my life savings and I shot a proof of concept at the old Al Jazeera America studios. And so my wife and I, we put our life savings together, and RIP to Al Jazeera America at 34th and 8th in New York City. But that's where we shot a proof of concept. I used their studio and their cameras, and I rented out the studio for a day. And then I presented that proof of concept to Netflix, and Netflix loved it. And, we were able to do Patriot Act for 6 seasons over at Netflix. And now I've been able to use that opportunity once again to continue to tell our story in unique and innovative ways. And so right now I have a line with Kohan where I've designed a shoe, and I've kind of infused our story and things that I've been really passionate about into product, and continue my journey at the morning show on Apple. And so one of the things that I'm most excited about for us as a community going into 2021 and beyond is, I think it's amazing to see so many people that are of my age and even younger that are not only active politically, socially, but in the arts. And what I love to see and what I've been seeing is that risk taking and that innovation, that as we have been fighting for the soul of America, I think a lot of times one thing that both parties have forgotten is that it is that immigrant DNA of risk taking entrepreneurship that makes this country unique. The singularity of ideas, exposure to risk, and fighting for those ideals and beliefs, that is the spirit of the entrepreneur. That is the spirit of the immigrant. That's in our blood. And when I look around and I see all the seminal people that are doing great work in my industry, whether that's Mindy Kaling or Lena Waithe or Ava DuVernay, or, there's countless names. Big shout out to Sana Amanat, who just put out the trailer for Miss Marvel. We'll be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Once again, Sana and G. Willow Wilson were telling the story of Kamala Khan and Miss Marvel almost a half decade ago. And it is that entrepreneurial spirit. It's that bravery and courage, and that's what it means to be an immigrant in this country, and what it means to be an entrepreneur in this country. And we truly are the community that makes things great in this country. So I'm so excited, not only for my generation, but the next generation. There's really dope, amazing work that's happening, and I cannot wait to see what happens in 2021. And, I just wanted to say once again, thank you to Islam Siddiqui and Shahid Rahman. Thank you guys for getting me dressed up tonight. This is I haven't gotten dressed up since March, so thank you guys so much. And that's my little speech. Let's do a little Q&A, but I'm feeling really optimistic about the future, and I can't wait to see all of you guys in the future in person.
Fantastic. Bye. Can I go live? Am I live? Ashraf? Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Hasan. Really appreciate it. I know you're wearing a suit. I'm sure it's from the top, but I'm not going to ask you what pants you're wearing, bro. But again, you've always been so gracious with your time and hospitality. We really appreciate it. And now I think we're really lucky to have you answer some questions from some of our audience participants. And I'm going to hand it over to them. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Samina, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. We really appreciate you joining this gala, so thank you for your presence. My question for you is that you have a talent at using your wit to be able to artfully inform people of the disparities that minorities face in this country, which I think contributes to creating transformative change. Do you think that those of us who have talents in the arts or play or performance can use these skills to boost engagement in the Muslim community? Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, well, Samina, I just wanted to say thank you for your question. Yeah, to kind of double back on what I was sort of discussing in the speech, I completely agree. We have such the Muslim community is so big, and we are such an eclectic group of people from all different parts of the world. From, there's folks that have been in the United States of America here for a very long time. So our roots in this country are very deep, and we come from so many different communities. And I really do believe we all have a very unique, special gift. And one of the things that I've tried to encourage people, just speaking from my own life experience, I can't speak for other people's experience, is to use your gift and to help change things. I happen to be into the arts. My sister happens to be a very successful attorney. We're both doing the best we can to try to impact change in the world. But one of the things that I try to tell and encourage, not only in my own children, but other kids and other people that ask me for advice, is find your gift, find something that you are able to do effortlessly, and then apply the work ethic that you would apply to med school to that specific thing. And I really do believe that if we do that, things can really change. And I do think the arts is a very powerful way to tell our story in a non-didactic fashion, rather than kind of looking to the camera and telling people literally. Folks like Rami Youssef have been able to use the storytelling medium to tell the humanity of our community. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. So using the arts is a very powerful tool. It has been a part of our culture, Islamic art and Islamic poetry and all sorts of things. The arts have been a unique part of our culture. And now I think a lot of us are applying that to show business and Hollywood. But I'm really excited to see not only what the next couple years hold, because there's a lot of exciting projects that are now starting to take place, but the next decade is going to be really, really exciting.
Thank you so much, Hasan. We have Sadia up next.
Hi, I'm Sadia Ahmed from Texas. I'm the Executive Director of the GEM Advisors Mentorship Program for high schoolers. My question for you today is, what would you tell your high school self knowing what you know today? Thank you.
Okay, I would tell high school Hasan two things. This is a little real. The first thing I would tell him is, all right, Hasan, you're gonna like this certain girl in high school. Please don't steal your mom's jewelry and give them to her, because she doesn't like you back. So if I could go back in time, I would tell Hasan to not steal his mom's jewelry to give to a high school crush. That's going to go very poorly. That's the one thing. So live through my humiliation and my pain, and don't do that. But in all seriousness, I would tell high school Hasan, and if anyone's in high school, I would tell them this. You're going to overestimate what you can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what you can accomplish in 10 years. And so I think for anybody who's a senior in high school that's entering the next chapter of your life, what you're going to be able to accomplish between 18 to 28 is going to be really profound and amazing. Give yourself an opportunity to try things, to give it your all, and give yourself the space to pivot and say, hey, that's not for me. That's okay. For what it's worth, I've been fired from every other job that I've had. I worked in tech, I got fired. I worked at Office Max, I got fired. I worked at Safeway, I got fired. So it turned out okay for me. Just take it easy on yourself. I think as long as you're trying to find your gift, again, your gift, you'll find your way.
Hasan, thank you again for answering that. Next, we have Salsabil. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Salsabil Al-Sulwi, and I am from the Bronx, New York, and I'm from the Bronx Muslim Center. Thank you so much, Hasan, for joining us. So your shows and comedy have tried to address institutionalized oppression, ranging from the dangers of overconsumption to police brutality to Islamophobia, and sometimes this information can be overwhelming. So my question for you is, how has comedy been a source of storytelling for you when addressing these very serious and political issues? And did you ever feel like you couldn't joke about something? Thank you.
Wow, Salsabil, that's a great question. All right, okay, this is a multi-part question. Okay, I really like that. I think what I love most about comedy is that it is an art form that I believe requires an incredible amount of bravery, because you must do two things that oftentimes are considered taboo in our culture. And that is, you must have radical individual thought that you are willing to share, And number two, you must be willing to endure public humiliation. The fundamental act of doing stand-up comedy means that you're going to stand on a stage. It may go well, it may not go well, and everybody in that room will know. That being said, if you were to actually do that with honesty, the audience actually does root for you and support you. So doing comedy has been a really great way for me to develop my self-confidence and to understand what I truly believe and what I really care about. And I think one of the best things that I love most about comedy is learning that you can be vulnerable and explore your own humanity, and people will see the vulnerability. If you're willing to laugh at yourself, the audience is willing to not only forgive you, but forgive themselves for times that they also have perhaps not always done the right thing or been flawed. And that is a really beautiful thing. And so by sharing my flaws, by sharing my experiences, I think it has been a way to humanize not only my own experience, but humanize the community. And comedy has been this beautiful way where I've been able to understand other communities and other life experiences. It has made me a more empathetic person. And I think, you know, as we all get super addicted to modernity and these phones, the live art form of comedy is still a really beautiful way to share your experience and make the world, my small way of doing it, make the world a better place. And so you're also able to do it in a way that is a little bit less, I would say, offensive in the sense that, again, by making fun of yourself first, you lower the tension in the room. And so you're able to talk about otherwise loaded topics like religion or politics in a more empathetic way. And so it has been a life changer for me. And yeah, that's why I love the art form.
Thank you, Hasan. And certainly last but not least, we have Hania.
Hi, Hasan. My name is Hania Jodat Barnes. I am an Iranian-American immigrant from Los Angeles, from Orange County, California. My question to you is, gender and racial inequality has been very prevalent in our society, our community especially, but it is very visible in Hollywood. As women, especially women of color, we continue to fight for our space and to be heard. What form of advocacy have you been involved in to ensure that your sisters have an equal share in society? And what do you plan on doing to ensure people of color, especially women of color, are represented in Hollywood? Thank you.
That's a great question. So first things first, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to two women that have had a big impact on my life and on my career. But to address the representation in Hollywood question, I think this is such a fitting time where, once again, I just want to give a mega shout out to an amazing woman from our community, Sana Amanat, who has been, once again, a huge champion of the Miss Marvel character. She has ushered in G. Willow Wilson to write and create the character, but bringing it to Kevin Feige, who's the head of Marvel, to include our story, include our perspective of Kamala Khan into the MCU. I cannot tell you guys how excited I am for all of us to be able to see a 15-year-old Muslim girl with superpowers. It is going to be a game changer. I think it's a seminal moment, and it was Sana's bravery and courage and G. Willow Wilson's bravery and courage to be vanguards and thought leaders in that regard. Sana was also kind enough, to actually answer your question. Sana co-signed me. She reached out to me and gave me a chance to enter the comic book industry and write an arc for Kamala Khan and the comic book series. And so I think one of the most exciting things that I have been trying to do in this next chapter is work with more women of color. I'm working on a project with Lena Waithe, who is an amazing Black female LGBTQ writer, creator, director, producer. Her movie Queen and Slim, we're developing a project together right now. And then there's another project that's very near and dear to my heart. I haven't announced it yet, but I'm actually working on it with my own sister, my literal sister, Aisha Minhaj. And so we're writing it and working on it together. And one of the things Aisha has reminded me while we're writing it is she told me the story when she saw the first cut of Homecoming King. And she said, it's funny that you share your story with about mom and dad, but that wasn't my story with mom and dad. And I remember asking her this very profound question. I said, is there any line that I should change from Homecoming King? And she said, there's nothing you can change in Homecoming King. It's the fact that I need to write Homecoming Queen. And so I was like, I need to find a way for us to do Homecoming Queen together. Like, we need to be able to tell your story and your perspective. And one of the things that I realized, and I've learned from Mindy, Lena, and even working with Reese and Jen at the morning show, is how important it is to write things from everybody's unique individual perspective. So I'm so excited for people to see Aisha's perspective in this next project. But I think the world is going to be profoundly impacted by, all these future projects that you're going to see from Lena or Sana Amanat. And I'm really excited about the next chapter. And I think the most exciting thing that I'm pumped about is that all of the people that I've mentioned are calling the shots behind the camera, which ultimately dictate what happens in front of the camera and what you end up seeing at home. So I think the future looks bright. Yeah, more to come.
Hasan, thank you so much. I think we've made it big once the Muslims are now in the MCU.
I think
we've made it. We've made it.
Huge deal.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for your time. You've always been a generous supporter and also extremely generous with your time.